questions about that? Okay. The objective is to gain additional insight into the lives of prophets that are familiar to many of us. You know, everybody pretty much, if you've been in church for even a week or two, you know, you've heard Elijah and Elisha. You might even know someone with those names. I do. Hi, baby Elijah. And so I want to do something this time. I want, prior to the end of the lesson or any time throughout the lesson, if you could jot down some inspiration that you received, something that illuminated your spirit as we're going along. Or it might be something that you learned. It could even be a question that you had. And what I would like to do is I'd like for us to begin each lesson going forward asking for the recap or the question that somebody might have had. Okay? If you want to. If something strikes you, write it down. And that also goes for those who are watching us. If you have something that you want to share right in the midst of Bible study, please make sure you put that information and it will be relayed to us. If you have a question, something you want us to have discussion about, please share that as well. But we'll start each lesson beginning next week with these thoughts or questions. Okay?
Amen.
I have a thought right now.
Oh, sure.
I went to a Bible study once before, and they were doing Elijah and Elijah. But the guy that was teaching it said it's Elisha. Now, I looked it up on the pronunciation in Google, and it says Elisha.
Okay. Well, that's certainly a new one for me.
Yeah.
I've just always heard it Elisha, but Elisha?
That's what it said. Look it up.
I will. I definitely will. Have you ever heard that, Pastor?
But it's if I'm correct, it's a Semitic language, so it's like Elohim is Semitic. So I don't know. I would have to look it up.
Yeah, that's the only guy that I ever heard
I've
say
never
it,
heard
and I
that
was
before.
gonna wait to see how you pronounce it, because I know you know your stuff.
Well, apparently I don't. But I'll check it out. I definitely will. I mean, that's why we're here. And that's why we share the responsibility of, remember I told you, Pastor, we share the responsibility of instruction because none of us are authorities. We've only got one, and that's the Heavenly Father. Amen. So I appreciate that sharing, and I'm going to look that up to find out. So we're starting with 1 Kings chapter 17 and 18 tonight, and that's going to give us our introduction into Elijah. Okay? So let's turn to that, and we read from whatever version that you have. If you would, please tell us which one it is. We kind of like the Message. And Beverly was missing one Thursday, and I couldn't get to mine, and we were having a difficult time. So somebody please read 1 Kings 17th chapter, verses 1 through 7, please.
Elijah predicts a drought. Now Elijah the Tishbite of Tishbe in Gilead said to Ahab, As the Lord, the God of Israel lives, before whom I stand, there shall be neither dew nor rain these years, except by my word. The word of the Lord came to him, saying, Go from here and turn eastward, and hide yourself by the Wadi Cherith, which is east of the Jordan. You shall drink from the wadi, and I have commanded the ravens to feed you there. So he went and did according to the word of the Lord. He went and lived by the Wadi Cherith, which is east of the Jordan. The ravens brought him bread and meat in the morning, and bread and meat in the evening, and he drank from the wadi. But after a while the wadi dried up, because there was no rain in the land.
And this is where a commercial will come in, right?
Yeah.
So two things happened here. What are those two things that occurred here? Because Elijah just, he just kind of just drops into this book. So what happens? Two different things happen.
You see prior to this?
No.
Oh,
Right here.
Right here.
What was the first thing that happened?
the Lord told Elijah to move. Go forth, and I'm going to provide for you.
Okay.
Okay, so he hears the word of God, and he didn't question him. He just got up and he moved. And who would have told you, if someone told you some birds were going to feed you? God, is that you? Birds are going to feed me?
And he told Elijah to build a wall.
Well, you know what? When not only he's obedient to God, he has to depend on God. Because what happens in our lives sometimes, you know what? Even those of us who God has blessed, you know what? We don't depend on God enough. So when he has to, you know what? Those of us who are scholars, you know what? He had to go against everything that he learned in life. Cause his custom is to stay away from the dirty animals. Now here God is telling you, I'm going to send an unclean animal to feed you.
Sound like Peter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I have the answer to that original question. I was reading, I have the African Heritage Bible, and in the King James Version. And it says, just to go back before I forget, if you don't mind, it says, Elijah, in the Hebrew, the name appears Yah, that's Eli-YA-HU, or Elijah, that's Eli-YAH, meaning my God is Yahweh. So there, in the Hebrew, which is where it would have been derived for Elijah, would be the correct pronunciation. I don't know where the other source is. I'm excited about that. I was reading it before I forgot.
So the very first thing, though, they tell us where Elijah is from.
Mhm.
They always do that. You know, they always give you that introduction, let you know where the person is from. He's talking to Ahab, okay? That's the first thing that happened. All of a sudden, he's got an audience with the king. Ahab is the king. We don't know how that happened. We don't know what occurred because, you know, that's not always possible for you to just walk up to the king. And also, Ahab was one of the most wicked kings there was. So he was pretty courageous as well. So this opens up with Elisha saying to Ahab that as surely as the Lord lives, Israel's God, the one that I serve, there will be neither dew nor rain these years unless I say so. Okay, so he's talking to Ahab, and that's who he's telling first. He's warning him first. Why was he warning him first?
Because Ahab believed in Baal. They worshiped Baal. And he was supposed to be the god of the earth. He was supposed to make it rain. And so
Absolutely. And then, excuse me, as we said, and then the Lord tells him, okay, go. And I like what Brother Greg said. Sometimes we can think that our faith and trust in God is so good. And then the Lord gives us another test. Okay, first of all, you send me over here to this wicked king. You tell me to prophesy to him. And now you tell me to leave and go to the brook and stay there and let dirty animals feed me. No, I'm like you, I can't even imagine. Not even a clean one, or a supposed clean one. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. And another reason to go back to your question, God has this funny way of saying, I am God. And we find that just like when God sent Moses to Pharaoh, the king in the old days, or in the old, as we find in the Old Testament, the king actually, his word, once it goes forth, just like Pharaoh, it cannot come back void. So God has a way of sending his prophets to show that no, you're a human king, you're a human being, your word is not infallible. I am God, and my
Yeah.
word is the one that goes out and never comes back void. And it's funny because, to go back to your original thing about the name, that you know, my name is God, is the God of Yahweh. So God is even in his prophet signing his name on a dotted line of who he is. So, yeah. So that may be why it opens up. I mean, in my opinion, that might be why it's opening up that way. Because God just said he's going to be God.
Okay.
And it also says Elijah's name means Yahweh is my God.
Correct, that's what I'm saying, yeah. Exactly.
So the Lord tells him to go and speak to Ahab, one of the most wicked kings, and prophesy my word. Don't add anything to it and don't take anything from it. Just say what I said. And then I want you to go over here to the brook or the wadi, and I want you to stay there. Now he's already said there's not going to be any rain.
Right.
And so he goes over to the brook. I wonder if Elijah might have thought that, oh, I'm gonna be good. You know, I'm good here. They not gonna have no rain, but I'm gonna be good. But then it ends by saying, and then that dried up.
Well, you know what? And then just like when we do these lessons, as I study them and I read them, I say, how can these lessons be applicable to my life today? And you know what happens? Even the men and women of God, you know what? He blessed, just like it was a blessing for him to sit by the brook and be fed on a daily basis. But then, you know what? With the blessings of God, we become comfortable where we are. And what he has to do in our lives, he has to dry some things up. You know what? He just like some of us, he blessed us, some of us with some riches. And you know what? We put those riches above God, or we depend on them more than we do God. Some of us, our fleshly things that we crave, that he gives us some of the things that we want. And we put those things or depend on them more than God. And sometimes he has to dry some things up in our lives in order for us to get up and get the move.
Amen. Dry brooks. Yeah, I'm sure some of us have definitely dealt with some dry brooks.
Yeah, I don't like what you said, Greg, because it seems like he gave him plenty by letting the birds feed him, and you have water, and then all of a sudden takes it. So we have to be always ready and always putting God first, like Greg said, because what looks like it's my comfortable spot, I'm good for the rest of my life, it's not that way. Praise him in the good and the bad.
That's what the word says. In season and out.
Yes. God breaks them down.
I mean, that's really a place to just kind of
Yeah.
sit for a moment. Because I'm thinking about some things in my own. You know, getting complacent, thinking that it's always going to be, and then it dries up. And you've got to continue to have faith. And so God doesn't give Elijah a whole lot of time to ponder that situation. He doesn't tell us how long he had to stay there looking at nothing. You know, some of us will be like, okay, now what I'm going to do now? You know, it doesn't tell us how long. It just says the next thing is, and this is verse 8, the Lord's word came to Elijah, get up and go. So the Lord doesn't give us time to sit around. We can be on the pity pot if we want to. But there are more assignments to do, more lessons to learn, and eventually a wadi that's going to be full again. But we got to keep being obedient. So he says, get up and go to Zarephath near Sidon and stay there. I have ordered a widow there to take care of you. Elijah left and went to Zarephath. As he came to the town gate, he saw a widow collecting sticks. He called out to her, please get a little water for me in this cup so I can drink. She went to get some water. He then said to her, please get me a piece of bread. Good place to stop for just a minute. Okay? So, the Lord really is something else. First, he got to eat from a raven, and now he got to go and be taken care of by a widow. The widow's supposed to be taken care of.
Not
The widow's
just a widow, a poor.
a poor widow.
She's poor, or she
Yes.
would have somebody picking up the sticks for her. She had, we find out, she has nothing.
Yes.
But can you see, and I've read this so many times and it just dawned on me that God told him to go there because there's a widow there that's gonna sustain you. So God already had blessed her before she even knew it or before Elijah knew it. He had already blessed her by speaking those words. In order for her to sustain him,
That's right.
that means that there's blessings coming to her that she don't even realize are coming. Because we find out that this woman is gathering sticks to make a last meal for her and her son.
Yes. Yes.
We have a viewer from Kansas that's saying,
Hey, Kansas.
we have an ear to hear. He will use the foolish things to confound the wise.
Yes. You know, amen, Kansas. Because I was just thinking as you were talking that a lot of times we definitely will miss our blessing because God will point us in the direction of something that we figure, I can't get anything there. Nothing's going to happen for me there. This is a widow, a poor widow. How is she going to do something for me? And oftentimes we dismiss the blessings of God because we don't realize that God has already taken care of that situation and He's going to do something that we can't even imagine or even believe could happen.
And isn't Elijah learning? God already did it once by feeding him with the birds and the brook. And when it dried up, he said, now go here. He went with all faith. He said he did it once, he'll do it again. And so that's our lesson. If he brought us out one time, he can definitely do it again.
And people really forget that
Yeah.
one time when he brought us out.
Mhm.
Now it's this other thing, oh my God, what am I
I'm
gonna
gonna do.
My book, I have the good news, it says, he commanded, he told me that I have commanded a widow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, and I did read, in the Common
Yeah.
English Bible, it says, I have ordered a widow. Yeah.
But when we keep on reading, she didn't know nothing about it.
Yeah.
I like it.
I have the King James Version. It says he commanded.
Uh-huh.
He said, I have commanded a widow woman there to sustain you.
I like the way he first tells her, I need something to drink. But while you at it, he said you were gonna feed me. Give me something to eat too. You know, he did it in two questions. In two
Sentences.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like, okay, wait a minute, now you just said you want some water. I could just hear some of y'all. Oh, wait a minute
You
now.
pushing it.
So let's think back in those days that you could walk up to a perfectly strange woman and tell her what to do.
That's
Okay.
another thing, yeah.
Women had to submit, didn't they?
They had, yes.
Women belong to their father, women were property. So they belong to their fathers first. And then if they married, they belong to their husband. If their husband died, they belong to the husband's brother. You were passed down
Mhm.
like
So
Like a coat.
like a coat.
Yeah, that's true.
One more thing.
Sure.
Kansas also says obedience is the key.
Mm-hmm.
Our blessings are locked up in obedience.
Obedience is better than sacrifice.
So just, just like Jerry said though, and I maybe there's some saints around the table that when something happens, the first thing we do is forget
That's right.
about the last time that God brought us through some things. That's usually sometimes. I don't know about everybody else, but I know for me. And then I have to remember, I have to make myself go to the fake file. Say, now wait a minute, Mel. Come on, man. Either I've been here before or I've been somewhere similar. You know?
But we are human, and we were born with these emotions. So it's, to me, it's natural that when something happens, immediately you're like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And it's a process that you have to learn, that when you get in those situations, go to the first or go to the source to get your strength, because you don't have it.
Don't stay in the natural law.
Oh, you know.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
Yes.
But I agree, in my life, eventually, everything has always worked out, regardless of how bad it seemed. But you also feel that you can't expect everything to always be good. So, I don't think it's a lack of faith, but, you know, God answers what you are asking for sometimes, and sometimes He doesn't, because it may not be what He wants.
Exactly. Might not be what you're ready for either.
Mhm.
Might not be something that you can handle. So you're absolutely right. So let's, somebody pick up 12 through 16, please. Verses 12 through 16.
I'll take it. She answered, by the this Good News Bible. She answered, by the living Lord your God, I swear that I don't have any bread. All I have is a handful of flour in a bowl and a bit of olive oil in a jar. I came here to gather some firewood to take back home and prepare what little I have for my son and me. That will be our last meal, and then we will starve to death. Don't worry, Elijah said to her. Go on and prepare your meal. But first, make a small loaf from what you have and bring it to me, and then prepare the rest for you and your son. For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. The bowl will not run out of flour, or the jar run out of oil before that day that I, the Lord, send rain. Then we want me to stop.
Verse 16.
Okay, no. The widow went and did as Elijah had told her, and all of them had enough food for many days. As the Lord had promised through Elijah, the bowl did not run out of flour, nor did the jar run out of oil.
So I want to go back to something that you said, or somebody said at the table about the Lord was commanding her to do it, but she wasn't even aware. Because if she was, she wouldn't have said no. Maybe. Sometimes we say no. Sometimes we don't want to do something. You know, we know
I
we should.
would, but
Yeah, we know we should. We know we're capable of it.
But did she say no? She didn't actually say no. She just explained herself and what she had. And what we do is a lot of times when we get directions from the man or the woman of God, do we want to follow the directions of that person, or do we want to pass the buck? Or say, well, somebody else could do that, because what he tells her in the King James is like, when you make it, I want this from your hands. You know, I don't want it from your son. I want it from you. Give it to me from your hands. So what she did is she had enough faith to follow the instructions.
Eventually. But the first thing she said was, in my
I
version,
don't have
she
it.
said, look at me. I don't have it. I'm taking this last bit I got. That's an excuse. She ain't just saying no straight out.
Yeah.
But she definitely is not acquiescing right away without giving her explanation for why it can't be done. But then, yeah, she does. Yeah, she does eventually go ahead and do it.
Isn't it amazing how that is so similar to Christ when he, the 5 loaves of, 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread? And they said, we got thousands of people here. How are you going to do that with this? He said, just do it. And she's obedient. She said, okay, if that's what you say.
She might have that thought. You did it before. You do it
Again.
And then sometimes it could be something about a person that approaches you and share and gives you the confidence that you need to do something you don't think you can with what you have. And then you just say, oh, okay, let me try it then. Let me go ahead and do that. Yeah.
And I mean, one of the things that was placed on my heart is that early on it said that the woman know. I've already told this woman
Mm-hmm.
she's going to provide. So it's probably on her heart to do it, but knowing all that she have left, she let him know, this is all I have left. Okay, I heard you. That's wonderful and everything, but I need to take care
Right,
of this.
right.
And she was like, okay, it confirmed what was on my heart.
Yeah.
So she went ahead and did it.
I think also too, you have to give her credit for knowing the God of Israel, because Elijah told her, go and do this for me, and then do it for you and your son, and it will not run out, because the Lord has said so. So I think that, like you said, by him confirming what the Lord has said, now she has the confidence to believe that God is going to provide. And so she went on and said, at your word, as your God liveth, I'm going to do this. And she went and did it, and she found out that there was plenty left over.
Give it your all.
Taking your last
Yeah, give it your all.
to give to somebody else. Believing and trusting that that's going to bless you. That's essentially what happened. So, 17 through 24, unless somebody else has something else to say.
I was just thinking, I don't know if this can compare with that, but it's almost like another revelation of Jesus dying on the cross for us. Here this lady is going to do this. She's preparing her last meal. But the prophet comes and said, do this for me, and it won't run out. But she was preparing to die.
Exactly. Yeah.
And, it made me think about Christ
Yes.
sacrificing his life for us.
Anybody else?
I'm waiting for the New Revised Standard Version, verse 17. After this, the son of the woman, the mistress of the house, became ill. His illness was so severe that there was no breath left in him. She then said to Elijah, what have you against me, O man of God? You have come to me to bring my sin to remembrance and to cause the death of my son. But he said to her, give me your son. He took him from her bosom, carried him up into the upper chamber where he was lodging, and laid him on his own bed. He cried out to the Lord, O Lord my God, have you brought to calamity even upon the widow with whom I am staying, by killing her son? Then he stretched himself upon the child 3 times and cried out to the Lord, O Lord my God, let this child life come into him again. The Lord listened to the voice of Elijah. The life of the child came into him again, and he revived. Elijah took the child, brought him down from the upper chamber into the house, and gave him to his mother. Then Elijah said, see, your son is alive. So the woman said to Elijah, now I know that you are a man of God, and that the word of the Lord in your mouth is true.
Okay, so let's do a recap. So, Elijah goes to a poor widow she's preparing to die. There's nothing else left but just enough for she and her son to have one last meal. And he speaks to her, talking about the God of Israel, convicts her spirit that she can do this. She can make this bread for him, and that it is never going to run out. And she does it. And then her son gets sick and dies. Wow.
But see, the son did not die of starvation.
No, you're right. He became ill.
He became ill.
But you know what? When the son dies, by her being a widow, she has a twofold distress. first of all, you know, when anybody's child died, they all messed up, they broke up. But for her during that time, her child is her future. It's his responsibility to care for her. So she's got a twofold distress. And so she's broke up. And then it talks about her sin. Whatever she did, it does not say. But she had guilt, some shame, and some remorse for whatever it is that she did, because it came straight, just like we talked about in Job and they said,
Must have done
well,
something.
you must have did something wrong for all this to happen to you. That's what she thinking. I knew something was gonna bad happen because I was a sinful person. I did this, that, and the other. So that's the way I was looking at it to that point.
Yeah, that was something.
I was thinking too, I'm looking at Revelation, and maybe it's because I've been doing some fasting, but you remember when Jesus said, tear this temple down and in 3 days I'll raise it up? 3 times Elijah just lays on this child, and after the 3rd time, this child is raised from the dead.
Wow.
And not only that, I think, prophetically speaking, that the Lord was allowing this woman to see this, because we don't know about this woman anymore, but I believe he was using her to be a witness in Israel, in the land.
And whatever it was, as you said, the sin that she did that had been wearing on her, that she would think that God was punishing her, God was letting her know that's through. That's in the past. I'm not holding that against you.
And then, you know what, then it talks about this method that the prophet uses. He laid on her, well, I'm not sure, because I'm not no Bible scholar, that this method ever was used before, but it's certainly unorthodox.
Mm-hmm.
So when, for difficult and strange situations, you might have to do something different in order to reach your goal. And so, and not only that, from the prayers, we could tell that he had an intimate relationship with God. Because you could tell the way it was heartfelt and how he went about. He went to God. He went to God with an argument why this shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Just like Job.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, there was no precedent for that. That is not, there was nothing in the Bible that ever talked about somebody laying on somebody 3 times. You know, so that was definitely, something different that happened.
I was just gonna say, it's no mistake at all that God listens to Elijah, because God loved Elijah so much that he called him up in the world, and we're gonna find that out later. But he had an awesome relationship with the Lord. Anybody that can get caught up alive and be taken up to God had to have a.
Kansas says, when tough times come through, you want someone who can get a prayer through around you.
Amen.
And that's what happens. Sometimes as men and women of God, you know what, we've got faith and we've done everything, and so what we need that woman of God, that woman or that man of God that's covering us right there, because we almost there, but you know what, we need that man or that woman of God just to pull us on through. And that's what he did. They were right there because God had told them, say, look, I'm only going to feed you until the drought is over. So that means that I'm going to take care of you until you can take care of yourself. So all this comes into play. The process is fulfilling, it's working its way out. And then just like say, and they were almost there. And then when the young man dies, Elijah is there to pull them through. And that's what happens sometimes. We need somebody with just a little bit more faith or some kind of covering.
Yeah, that's
Opposed to-
basically what our visitor from Kansas said too.
Yeah.
Yeah, the people I want around me
Mm-hmm.
are the ones that can get a prayer through.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Now, this is me. Just saying.
Okay.
It just seems to me that this woman had an intense pain. She lost a child. I cannot think of anything more painful. You know, and so when we're made that when we get this pain, it takes all our consciousness because we're focusing on this pain. So that means that that's a deep, deep hurt, and it's going to take something deep, equally as deep and stronger to bring us out of it. You know, and that's where Elijah came in at. You know, I can see some parallels here.
Yeah,
in some of the
and
things.
that's a good point you made. Sometimes we can be in such anguish
Mhm.
over a situation, and then God just answers so dramatically.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, and it's like, I never expected that. Because whatever we're going through, whatever we're dealing with, it just seems like it's not gonna get any better. It just couldn't get any better.
And also, if you read again, and every time you read it, you get something else out of it. The son dies, and Elijah takes the son from the mother. Now, can you imagine the anguish that you're holding on to this child for dear life, and it's died, and yet this man is trying to take it out of your arms? I wondered that he had to fight with her, because I'm sure she didn't give him up voluntarily and took him upstairs. You know, he didn't even want her to witness what he was going to go to God and ask. He took her son away from her
To the upper room.
to the upper room. Things happen in the upper room.
Yes, yes. Love the upper room.
Amen. The upper room.
Amen. Yeah. Amen. Amen. Now, that's a song that'll make
Oh,
you
yeah.
shout.
Oh, yeah.
Jesus.
Yes, yes, yes. Miraculous things happen.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so anything else for chapter 17? We've gotten this awesome introduction to Elijah. Elijah has been courageous enough to obey the Lord and speak to somebody who was wicked, but not speak on their own about what they wanted,
Mhm.
but to declare what God said. There's a difference.
Oh, yeah.
Some of us can go up to wicked people and we say what we want to say,
Mhm.
but it got nothing to do with the Lord, all right? So he was obedient. I'm sure he could have thought of a whole lot of other things he might have wanted to say to him, but he spoke what God said. And then God wanted to see how obedient he would continue to be as he put him in one situation after another. And then not only how obedient he could be, but how would he be able to bring others to him?
Yeah.
And he sends them to a widow.
Mhm.
Yes.
I like it here, Elijah makes it personal. He says, when you're talking to God, sometimes you got to weigh on the soul of God himself. And Elijah makes it personal. When he's calling out to God,
Mhm.
he says, "Oh Lord,
Mm.
my God."
My God.
And he says that twice. In other words, you're not just somebody else's God. You're the God that has fallen. We have this relationship, you and me. And so he's calling out to the God and reminding God who God is to him. And then he he tugs on the heart of God, kind of like David did.
Mhm.
David knew how to tug on the heart and the love of God, and I like that. Yeah, then he says something else. He says, "Let this child's soul come back into him again. That ruach, that breath of life, what you have taken, be placed back into him." So he's being like a doctor talking to the doctor of doctors, diagnosing the problem.
Right.
So it's like, I'm like, yeah, I like that.
Amen. The doctor of doctors.
And you know, when you're in the presence of someone that's in pain and you care about that person, you're hurting. You may not be hurting as much, but you're hurting for them.
Yes, yes.
And I'm thinking, he said, Lord, you sent me out here. We got the oil and the flour going. don't take this child.
Yeah, she's a
From this
widow,
woman.
add not
Yeah.
affliction to the afflicted.
Yes.
Yeah, deprive her of her support. This child that is so important to her. And so this is something that also came to me before we move on to 18. So when people read this, how can you relate this story to somebody? So this, especially this piece right here where a child died and then was raised. What other situations happen to people that are similar to that?
When they are diagnosed with a fatal illness, and then all of a sudden the illness is no longer there. My grandson was diagnosed with rheumatic fever. No, they thought that he had brain cancer, and then they figured out that it was just rheumatic fever. So, when they got the first diagnosis, I said, he don't have that. And I talked to Erica in Minnesota, and I said, he doesn't have that. And it just came to me in a dream, he doesn't have that. And the next day she called and she said, they changed. They said it's not brain cancer, he has rheumatic fever. Yeah, you know, yeah. 5 years ago.
And you know what? We have to recognize miracles
Mm-hmm.
of all sorts, not just the ones about health. They are great, but just like I told some people, I know this guy. He never worked a day in his life, and he just got a job. When he filled out his application, there was nothing to put on there except his name and his address. And so God works miracles in many ways, in many directions. So what we have to do is we have to be open and be able to recognize when he put it right in front of us. Some are big and some we consider small, but all of them are big when God is working it out.
The Lord can resuscitate a lot of dead things.
Yes.
We don't want anybody to get stuck with, well, my child died and people prayed and my child didn't come back to life. We want to acknowledge how powerful this was, but like Greg said, there are other things that God does that are equally powerful. Not to minimize that at all.
But does not, if we stop, I'm going to New Testament, jumping. When any of us die, there's a resurrection. So, for the parent that lost their child, that ruach, that breath of life didn't come back. That God is a continuum. There's no beginning, no middle, no end, just like this breath of life that we have. And so there's always a resurrection. So the child, at least in the Christian faith and in some other faith, there's a belief that there is a resurrection. So sometimes we have to look and say, there was a resurrection, it's just that God resurrected the child on the other side, just like Jesus hung on the cross and said, Father, it is finished. But what he gave up the ghost, and in there go that 3 again. In 3 days he rose again in fulfillment of the scripture. But I'm going back to the Old Testament. Sorry about that.
What kind of stood out to me was in the beginning, she was ready to die. She had lost all hope and faith. And then she got hope again. And then her son died. She lost hope, and then in the end, she regained her hope and faith.
Yo.
We go through seasons.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Amen. So, chapter 18, after many days, the Lord's word came to Elijah. It was the 3rd year of the drought. Go, appear before Ahab. I will then send rain on the earth. So Elijah went to appear before Ahab. Now the famine had become especially bad in Samaria. Ahab had called Obadiah, who was in charge of the palace affairs. Obadiah greatly feared the Lord. When Jezebel killed the Lord's prophets, Obadiah took 100 of them and hid them, 50 each in 2 caves. He supplied them with food and water. Ahab said to Obadiah, "Go throughout the land and check every spring of water and every brook. Perhaps we can find some grass to keep our horses and mules alive so that we don't have to kill any of them." To search, they divided the land between themselves. Ahab went one way by himself, while Obadiah went a different way by himself. Can someone pick that up for me, please, and read 7 through 14?
And as Obadiah was on the way, behold, Elijah met him. And Obadiah recognized him and fell on his face and said, "Is it you, my lord Elijah?" And he answered him, "It is. It is I. Go tell your Lord, behold, Elijah is here." And he said, "How have I sinned that you would give your servant into the hand of Ahab to kill me? As the Lord your God lives, there is no nation or kingdom where my Lord has not sent to seek you." And when they would say, "He is not here," he would take an oath of the kingdom or nation that they had not found you. And now you say, "Go tell your Lord, behold, Elijah is here." And as soon as I have gone from you, the Spirit of the Lord will carry you, and I know not where. And so when I come and tell Ahab, and he cannot find you, he will kill me, although I, your servant, have feared the Lord from my youth. Has it not been told, my Lord, what I did when Jezebel killed the prophets of the Lord, how I hid 100 men of the Lord's prophets by 50s in a cave, and fed them with bread and water? And now you say, "Go tell your Lord, behold, Elijah is here, and he will kill me." And Elijah said, "As the Lord of hosts lives, before whom I stand, I will surely show myself to him today."
All right. So what's going on? The Lord gives Elijah another command. It's 3 years have passed. Now I want you to go to Ahab. You started this off when you told him it was going to happen. I want you to go back to him. Tell him it's over.
And Ahab had searched for Elijah all through the land. Where is he at? Where is he?
He's the one that said
He
this.
said this, but he sends Obadiah out not to save the people of his kingdom, but to save his horses and his animals.
Well, you know what had happened is that Ahab is understanding that everything Elijah has said has come true. So he was like saying, but at this point, we still got a few things. We need to try to preserve these few things that we got. And in the process, the prophet runs into Obadiah. Now, you know what? And Obadiah don't want to go tell his boss, say, "Look, the man who told us about this drought, he want to come see you and whatnot." Say, "I don't want to." So he didn't want to do it. And he thought surely that he'll be dead. And he's trying to he believes God, but he want to make a deal with God. That's just like how some people, just like how the gangsters, they take money to the Catholic Church after they do the murder. He trying to make a deal. He still want to get into heaven. And another thing is that just like say, the story is got a lot to do with it keeps saying many times, the God of Israel. But this is a foreign land where there's other folks other than the children of Israel. and we see that some of them are believing in the God of Israel. Because it does not say what the widow woman's background is, but she's in Samaria. And then we got Obadiah. He works for the king. It does not say what his background is, but Samaria was not a town where Gentiles resided.
And it had been 3 years of drought.
Yes.
And they had been praying to their God.
Yeah.
And nothing had come to pass.
Right.
But they were still believing in this God. Obadiah, I read, is like a title, like the president. There were 14 Obadiahs, it said, and he was just one of
He
them.
was the governor.
Right, something like that.
But isn't it something that he's worried about? You want me to go tell him that you're alive and I've been hiding 100 people,
Right.
pinching off the bread and water, feeding them, and now you want me to go tell him that? He said, not only am I going to get in trouble for telling him that you're there and then you decide you don't want to show up, but he's going to find out I've been pinching bread and water to feed these 100 prophets that he don't even know are still alive.
And they slipped in something they slipped in a little something. They said
Oh, yeah.
that it was especially bad. Well, certainly it would be bad.
Yes.
3 years.
Mm.
But the other thing, though, is that it was so bad that the king was out looking for water.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Now, you know that don't
Go this
happen.
way and I go that way.
Everybody up there.
Yeah.
The king was
and the
looking.
governor.
Yeah, the king and the governor, right. Usually they got people they gonna send out to do that.
So they must be.
That's why I said to everybody else down.
Must have
Well, they were sickly.
Didn't have the strength to go.
Exactly,
More
exactly.
concerned about his horses.
Yeah. So we're gonna just read as much as we can. We're not gonna finish the entire chapter. And so anyway, so like you said, so Obadiah loves the Lord, knows the Lord, has hid prophets, but now he's being asked to step up his faith. That's essentially what's happening. Okay, I done did all this stuff here and fed them and took them to one cave and took them to another cave. There were a lot of caves, you know. Took them to all these 2 caves. And now you want me to do something else? Go to my boss and tell him that you were talking to me, first of all, and then that you want him. Yeah, you know, one test begets another test, right?
Mhm.
You pass that one and something else is on the way. So he says, starting with 16, so Obadiah went to meet Ahab, and he told him what had happened. Then Ahab went to meet Elijah. And when Ahab saw Elijah, Ahab said to him, "Is that you, the one that troubles Israel?" Elijah answered, "I haven't troubled Israel. You and your father's house have." See, we want to blame somebody else for the things that we have caused. He said, "You did as much when you deserted the Lord's command and followed the Baals. Now send a message and gather all Israel to me at Mount Carmel. Gather the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah who eat at Jezebel's table. Bring them on." That's what he said. Somebody like to read 20 through 24, and then we'll end that there for the day.
I'll read it. So Ahab sent unto all the children of Israel and gathered the prophets together unto Mount Carmel. And Elijah came unto all the people and said, How long halt ye between 2 opinions? If the Lord be God, follow him. But if Baal, then follow him. And the people answered him not a word. Then said Elijah unto the people, I, even I only, remain a prophet of the Lord, but Baal's prophets are 450 men. Let them therefore give us 2 bullocks, and let them choose 1 bullock for themselves, and cut it in pieces, and lay it on wood, and put no fire under. And I will dress the other bullock, and lay it on wood, and put no fire under. And call ye on the name of your gods, and I will call on the name of the Lord, and the God that answered by fire, let him be God. And all the people answered and said, It is well spoken.
How many times have you been around people that claim to know the Lord, but when you ask them something about Jesus, or you ask them to step out on faith and believe something and do something, and everybody's sitting there looking at you, nobody's saying anything? And so that's it. And so then Elijah said, okay, well, we're going to have this little test. Go get 2 bulls. You take 1, I'll get 1. Don't put no fire. Cut it up. Chop it up real good. And don't put any fire under.
And we got 400 people.
Yes, yes,
Me
yes.
by myself.
And I'm by myself.
And the Lord.
400, you got 450 to 1.
Mm-hmm.
Has anybody ever felt like it was the world against them? You were by yourself. Everybody is against you. Everybody is coming at you. All manner of evil is attacking you. And but you're bold and you're brave. Yeah. So this is the point where we have we say stay tuned to next week. When in fact we find out what happens with these two bulls and whose God is the real God. We want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. It has certainly been a pleasure and a blessing to just be back in the house of God studying the Word of God. Next week we will continue the remainder of chapter 18 and then we will go into 19 and 20. God bless you.